And now through the auspices of the Humble and Fred Radio Network, we present to you another episode of Swing Thoughts. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right, cheesy sound effects aside. Hi, everybody. Hi, Tim.
Hello. I like cheesy sound effects. I like it on live albums from the 70s in which they crank it up.
I got lots of stuff like that. Hey, everybody. It's Golf Spiritual Leader along with Coach Tim O'Connor. And this is Swing Thoughts, as you well know, because you've downloaded the program, or maybe it comes to you automatically because you've subscribed to it. We certainly appreciate that and always appreciate you hanging out with us for another hour as we discuss some of the golf issues of the day. How about Scotty Scheffler? He had a bad week last week, finished fourth.
Poor guy. He must be really down in the dumps.
Jeez,
what a slump. My gosh.
Yeah, do you think, by the way, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm enjoying the fact that it's risen above 6 degrees. Here we are at the end of May. It's spring again, kind of late arriving. But no, it's getting nice. I spent some time on our range yesterday. It was really fun.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of golf in multiple layers, and just the idea of having have mittens on and toques and such. As I told you before we hit record, I was supposed to play our men's night this afternoon, but I just have no interest in it. I don't want to be like at 4 o'clock today. It's going to be raining, 2 millimeters of rain, but it's 13. It's 13, but feels like 11. And once it's that, I played a lot of golf recently. I was telling you, a lot of tournament golf. And just uncomfortable. Last Thursday morning, I teed off with our friend Ken Osborne. We happened to be paired together in a GAO event, and it was 6 degrees. I wore long johns, long pants, rain pants, and it rained off and on for the first 9 holes of the round. It was just hideous, wretched.
Yeah.
And then the rain kind of just kept coming and going. I had so many layers on my top, and it's just, it's not an excuse as to why the scores were very high, but it was an explanation.
There you go. Yeah. I also find on those days with all the layers, it's cold. You're drinking lots of coffee. It adds new meaning to the words of trying to find yourself.
No kidding. And so later, we've got a guest coming up shortly. Very excited to have a lot of people know our guest today. And if you follow him on X or any other social medias, he's the founder of Practical Golf. Jon Sherman will be here. He's written a book called The 4 Foundations of Golf, a bestseller. But he's got an interesting story. Much like, he's not a professional. He is a very high-level amateur that's turned his passion for the game into his business. And as well, he's a mental performance coach for some pretty high-level players, including a Canadian, Mackenzie Hughes.
Yeah, that's really impressive. Yeah. I was looking at his website today. I really look forward to talking to him. It's he sounds like a little bit similar to you and I in terms of people who talk about the game, coach, and a lot of it comes from our own experience with this infernal game. But I look forward to getting into that with him for sure.
Also, if we have time after John's appearance, I will tell you. Our last episode, I talked about making a 9. Hadn't done that in a long time. But I've reached new grounds. I have scaled new heights. I have gone to a place. I have 2 things I haven't done in a long time. And I don't think ever. In the entire time we've been recording this show, the highest score I've ever made while trying in a tournament was 9. Last week in St. Thomas, and then 10 years ago, I was playing in the Canadian Mid-Am at Lambton. I think that's the course. And made a 9. But now I've broken through that barrier. 9? Ha! I laugh at 9s.
I scoff and guffaw at 9.
Exactly. 9? Are you even trying? Anyway, so I had another episode. and I will get into it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm
And
going to let Mr. Sherman
yeah, let
in,
Mr.
as
Sherman
they
in, and
say.
I will give him the big introduction, and we'll get right into talking to Jon. It's been a long time. Jon and I go back and forth quite a bit on X. I've been a big fan of Jon's, and as you just mentioned a minute ago, very similar to our story. You know, a guy that sort of has been a big fan of the game, has talked about the game on his podcast, and of course his book, The Four Foundations of Golf, we've mentioned. But Jon plays at a high level, and now has started coaching at a pretty high level. Welcome to our program. Finally, look at you, Jon Sherman, all in all your glory. How are you, kid?
I'm good. Good to finally talk to you, meet you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, as I mentioned just a second ago, Tim and I were talking that your story's similar to ours. You know, you weren't. This isn't what you were trained to do, but let's sort of go back and how before the podcast started. Give us a bit of a background into your journey, and I hate to use the word journey, but into your journey in golf and how you got to where you're at now.
Yeah, I mean, long story short, I played every sport growing up as a kid. I loved them all, and one day I found a really old set of golf clubs in my grandmother's garage. Went across the street to an abandoned schoolyard and was stacking up dead grass. They're old hickories, I think, and I just made perfect contact with one of them and was just instantly addicted. And yeah, I tried really hard as a junior golfer. I would say I was okay-ish. I was captain of a pretty mediocre high school golf team. I walked on to a Division III golf team and barely played. I just I spent a lot of time trying to get better and felt like I never reached my potential and didn't enjoy the game as much as I should. And that really got worse in my 20s as I didn't play as much. And then when I became a father and moved out of New York City and got to play more, I kind of undid a lot of the mistakes I was making and got down to, scratch level. And I was like, well, let me just start writing about this, the things that I've learned. I felt like everything was about the golf swing. This was back in 2015. There weren't too many resources online. It was still a bunch of websites. YouTube was just getting started. So I just started kind of writing about what I felt were important topics from a player's perspective. I wrote hundreds of articles on a website that a lot of people didn't pay attention to for many years. I think after 5 or 6 years, it got some traction. And then I turned a lot of that into my book, The Four Foundations of Golf. Then we started the podcast. And really, the book kind of changed everything for me. That's when I started getting more attention. But yeah, I did it for a long time in the darkness, I would call it. The internet can
Yeah,
be
I
a
got it.
cold, dark place.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm curious. I don't think that what transitioned for you from being a, say, trying hard to swing to a model, chasing tips, all that stuff that people usually do. Um, was there a couple of moments, or what was the thing that tipped it over to you changing your approach?
I think I've always had a very unorthodox way about going about sports. I've always practiced really hard. Like I can shoot a basketball incredibly well, but my mechanics don't look orthodox. And I've always used that as my blueprint of not trying to fit into any model. But with golf, I was really practicing the wrong way and reinforcing some bad habits. So I think, and I want to give credit to instructors. I got instruction from a swing professional back in like 2012 or 13 when I was still living in New York City. And he only gave me a few lessons, but he kind of had me start hitting a draw. And that really felt like my true DNA as a golfer that I hadn't embraced my whole life. I was trying to hit a fade my whole life and it just wasn't working. And then I kind of took that model and I've kind of just reacted to my ball flight and impact conditions since then. So I think, I have to give a lot of credit to him. He sent me off on the right path. And since then, I haven't gotten instruction. I've been going at it on my own. But I think once I got a model of my golf swing that felt more natural and like to me, it felt like I could finally release the club rather than holding
Mhm.
on to it. Um, that was really a big change for me. And then there was a lot of other stuff over the next 10 years. I used to be wild with my driver. I figured that out. Iron play, putting. But yeah, I think, I'm a big proponent of, as much as I try and help golfers who are on their own, I still am a very big proponent of swing lessons. Because if I hadn't gotten that lesson, those 3 lessons, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I don't think any of this would have happened for me.
Well, let me ask you this question, and it's going to be very simple. What do you think most, because you, as we've often talked about on the show, you talk the talk, you walk the walk. Like part of what's intriguing about our last 10 years of this podcast is that, Tim's got a lot of experience in dealing with people on the mental side, and I've got a lot of experience of having been instructed by some of the biggest names in golf, and yet still struggled for a long time. I'm like you, a tournament player, and yet wondered why my tournament ability was not like the ability I could show, just hitting a golf ball. So, what do you think most amateurs misunderstand about the concept of improvement?
Well, there's a lot of different ways I can go about this, but the main thing for me, and I think a lot of other players, is that my vision of what the next level looked like was not true. Um, I've used I use statistics from the PGA Tour or scratch golfers to kind of show people that, I always assumed as a junior player, like, oh man, I'm just going to be flagging it, draining birdie putts, and just doing everything really, really well to get to the next level. And at the sign of any imperfection, I would lose my mind because I'm like, this isn't matching up with what I'm seeing on TV, what I've been told. So I didn't really have anyone who could pull the curtain back for me. Um, I had to do it the hard way. And then I noticed as I got better, I got exposed to better players. I'm like, wait a second, this looks way more boring than I thought. And don't get me wrong, it's hard to play boring golf. But I think this idea of like the sexy, fireworks type of golf, um, leads you down a different path. You can make a lot of strategic errors. You can make a lot of errors with your golf swing, the way you're practicing, your attitude, your mental state. It all kind of comes together. So yeah, I think just we humans have this amazing ability to concoct fantasies in our brain.
Absolutely.
A- And and especially with golf, we think about how we want to play all week on a Saturday morning, and it just doesn't live up to it half the time.
Well, if I could just interject to say
Sure.
one of the biggest breakthroughs I had, and I've talked about it on the show, was the time I spent with Fawcett 3 or 4 years ago. I spent a deep dive into decade, but what it taught me, I think mainly, is kind of what you're talking about, which is we have a fantasy about what really good golfers do, and what they do is pretty sort of mundane. It's very, if you played with a guy shooting 69, you wouldn't really notice much different than a guy shooting 75, but maybe a few less mistakes, but pretty tedious, pretty boring golf. And the
Yeah.
biggest breakthrough that I had was finding out what a good shot was. And I often
Mm.
say this with people I've worked with: if you don't know what a good shot is, how will you know if you've hit one? The example being from 15 yards in the rough, Decade will tell you that the average proximity on the PGA Tour is closer to 6 feet than it is 6 inches. But if you're an amateur golfer thinking that you're supposed to hit everything close while you're pitching up to a green, then you're always going to be in that, Tim knows this very well, that perpetual feeling of not doing it right.
Yes.
When you might be an amateur golfer with a 10 handicap and you hit it on the green and it's 18 feet, that's a good shot. 15 feet's a good shot, but you'll be perpetually frustrated if you don't know what a good shot is. Has that been part of
Yeah.
what you've learned?
Yeah, it's a huge part of it, and Scott's a good friend and certainly been helpful to me. But yeah, I always say if you can't understand what a good shot for your skill level is, a lot of things fall apart. You can't pick good targets. Again, your attitude is quite poor. Again, if you're frustrated by everything, like the path of least resistance in golf is frustration and kind of like self-mutilation in a way. And
Oh, I've done some of that.
that's the hard, and I try and be honest. Like despite me being the person giving the advice to other people, like I struggle with this myself. And then the last few qualifiers I've played, I've kind of I'm usually good at closing rounds that are going well for me, and I haven't done it the last three, and it's been frustrating for me, and I've gotten angry at myself. And I have to go back to the drawing board and say, you know what? Just because I did it in the past doesn't entitle me to do it in the future, and then there's volatility of scoring. So these are all reminders to myself of all the things I'm trying to help other golfers with, because no one ever perfects this.
John, one of the things that we're able to do on our podcast is talk to interesting folks like you and Fred Shoemaker and Carl Morris. And Carl has a great phrase. He says that in golf, it's not about swinging in the way, it's your way.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you had a similar experience in terms of, yeah, you took those 3 lessons and you learned how to release the club to hit the draw, but I see golfers getting stuck all the time, as you know, in trolling through YouTube for hits, always seeking, the way. How does that resonate for you about finding your way versus the way?
Yeah, and Carl, I love Carl. He's been on our podcast a number of times. He's a really wonderful coach. Yeah, I think swing instruction's come a long way. It's really caught up on this. Is that the instructors that I respect the most, and there's more of them these days, are not teaching a model swing. I think in the 80s, 90s, and even into the 2000s, everyone wanted to teach like one version of the swing, and then as a pupil, you had to adjust to that model. But now we have way better information and technology that allows for more personalities in golf swings, I would say. I was just watching a video of the kid who won the Division 1
I saw
championship,
him.
and
Lasso?
yeah,
What's his name?
yeah, I forget it already,
Yeah, I'll
but I
tell you
was
what,
just
though.
like, it was crazy, right?
It is crazy. Like, this is a kid that was a medalist at the NCAAs this week. And Timmy, go look this up. And everyone else listening, as John said, it's bananas. And the shorts he was wearing, I was laughing at. Like,
His thighs are like bursting out of
yeah,
his
he's
shorts.
got, well, up here in Canada, John, he's got like a hockey lower body, right? He's got a
Yeah,
hockey,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Sidney
he's got
Crosby
hockey
butt.
ass. He's got the big butt, the big thighs. He's got, he looks like John Rahm. Somebody online, I don't know if you saw this, John. Somebody said if Rory and John Rahm had a baby, that's how he swings. Like, it's
Yeah, it was,
unbelievable.
but you look at all these players now, and even the tournaments I play, and there's more unorthodox looking swings than there are cookie cutter swings. And I think, and it's not to say I want people to have a funky looking golf swing. Mine doesn't look that pretty. It's more understanding that we all have a DNA and a certain matchup to our swing, and I find it best to work within those limitations and tendencies. And this goes all the way up through the PGA Tour. If you try and fit the square peg into the round hole, bad things can happen. So yeah, I'm not a swing instructor. I think I've learned a lot about the golf swing, but I kind of stay away from it at the same time, because the more I learn, the more I don't want to know. So I remain willfully ignorant on many things in my own golf swing, and try and be athletic and instinctual, and that's not always easy to do. So yeah, it's hard because you say that term swing your swing. People have gone, I don't really use it that much, and people go nuts on me when I say it. And it's like, well, what if your swing sucks? Yeah, well then you got to do some work and hopefully get instruction and fix it. But if someone's trying to put a swing on you that your body physically can't handle, and more importantly, one that doesn't feel comfortable on the golf course, then you might be heading down the wrong path. It's a really complex topic.
The
Yeah,
kid's
but I
name
think
is,
that,
sorry, Tim, the kid's name is Michael Lasasso. Check him out.
well, that's right. Yeah.
There you go. Similar
I
to
think
Lasso.
the mistake that, yeah, there you go. The mistake I think that a lot of people make is that they seek salvation in a golf tip. This is nothing new, but
Yeah,
there
yeah, it's
are
been around forever.
fundamentals you got to understand. You got to understand hit down, make ball go up. If you're trying to hit the shit out of it with, you know, your rippling muscles, well, that's a recipe for hitting it short and crooked. So, but I do think, what do you think about the whole idea of people sort of just have, not sort of, but having an awareness of what they're actually doing versus trying to think their way through the swing?
So the philosophy that I've stuck with, and anyone who listens to our podcast, and Adam Young, my co-host, the way he instructs is, we think about ball flight impact backwards. So the main thing that I'm focused on in my golf swing is my club face control. And that is, depending on which club you're hitting, 60 to 85% responsible for the start line of the golf ball. I believe the PGA Tour is mostly a competition of club face control. So every shot I'm hitting on the golf course, I'm not thinking about what my body's doing, but I am pretty focused on what most people would think is wrist angles and maybe the rotation of my trail forearm. I'm not like thinking about it heavily, but it's a game of left to right. And every shot I'm hitting, I'm absorbing that feedback visually and what's going on in my body. And that has been my guiding light for well over a decade. In addition to, where am I striking it on the face and how is my club interacting with the turf? I think those two skills are more of like beginner to intermediate skills. But as you get more advanced in this game, it's ultimately how well is your club face matching up with your swing path?
Yeah, I just want to add on to that. One of the coolest articles I read in a long time was by Randy Smith in Golf Digest.
Exactly. Yeah. That quote's
And
wonderful.
he talked about how, Scotty Scheffler's got his footwork. No one would ever teach that or try and model. But he said that since Scotty was a kid, he always knew where that club face was.
Mm-hmm.
And that just speaks, it aligns perfectly what you're talking about there.
Every very good golfer knows it on some level, whether they say it out loud or they understand it intuitively. If you can't feel or control the club face, like you cannot get better at this game. You can't keep tee shots in play. It's errant tee shots are the leading cause of double bogeys if you look at it statistically, and that is mostly a function of a club face that's way too open or closed. And if you have no way of self-correcting on the golf course, look at Scotty in the PGA Championship.
Yeah,
His
that was
first
brilliant.
7 tee
Yeah,
shots were to the
Yeah.
left.
that's
Happened when he
right.
won the first Masters as well. He was closing the face and he was hitting a little pull hook, a double cross instead of his fade. And he had a little conversation with Ted Scott and they kind of fixed it. And then he blows away the field. So the best in the world are doing this, and every other golfer can do it. Obviously, not at that level, but how are you adjusting on the course when you see these shots going way left and right? And that is, club face control. I think it's the number one problem to solve in golf, and you never fully figure it out.
It's interesting that you say it's the number one problem because if you look online, and I'm as guilty as anyone else of just going, "Oh, that seems cool. I should try that." Um, and yet, but the main issue is, the sort of de rigueur or the move of the last decade is ground force and force plates and moving and this Timmy. When you see this Lasasso kid, he's got the crazy, like the modern movement with his left foot spinning out. Like, I can't even replicate it when I'm trying it.
Yeah.
And yet we're in a speaking
Is
of
it
hockey.
is this Matt Wolf 2.0?
No, it's his upper body is pretty. It's just a different. It's the modern golf swing times 10. But my point is, in Canada, I grew up playing hockey. I never once, when I went to hit a slap shot, I was thinking about this the other day. I never once thought about what my lower body was doing. When I played baseball, I never thought about what is my lower body doing, or tennis, et cetera, because it's all in support of your hands, arms, wrists, and shoulders making that motion, which is what you're saying. Those are the things. The thing that controls the club face isn't straightening your left leg before impact.
It depends on the golfer. I think, Adam Young, my co-host on our show, does a great way of explaining this. Is like when you try and isolate a certain movement like that, like
Yeah,
his footwork is a secondary reaction to something else he's doing in his golf swing. And if you try and mimic
exactly.
that, you don't know what that is technically, right? Like he might not even know what that is. I find that the better the player is, the less they know about, there's that famous clip of Dustin Johnson, don't
Yeah, yeah.
forget to fade it. He has no clue why he can hit a golf ball the way he does. Like absolutely no clue, and that's why he's so great. It's like what I said earlier, like willful ignorance. There's two types of players: ones that go down the rabbit hole and the ones that
I
don't
know.
want to know.
Well, there's the famous saying in pro golf is there's two types of golfers: ones that are really really smart and ones that are really really
Yeah,
dumb.
Mickelson said that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it makes sense.
the problem with guys like us though is if you're just in between, not smart
Yeah,
enough, not dumb enough, that's when people get into trouble. I want to talk a little bit
potentially, yes.
about your experience as a tournament player and what it can teach those people that want to play, even just recreationally. How did you get yourself to playing? I know you played in some USGA events. I think did you not play the Mid-Am, or you qualified for the Mid-Am?
I did. I got into the my claim to fame as a decent mid-am golfer is I won my mid-am qualifier. So I won a
Nice.
USGA medal and I got to the mid-am at Sleepy Hollow as a New Yorker. It was pretty special.
Yeah,
So
very
that
cool.
is
That's
my
exciting. Wow.
yeah, for a guy who was a 5'10" handicap at one point, it was kind of a pipe dream. So yeah, I play a ton of tournament golf. I'm very fortunate to live in the New York metro area, and the Metropolitan Golf Association is, I believe, one of the best amateur golf bodies in the world. So I compete on a full schedule.
As very similar to me, I would just. But what are your thoughts in terms of? I was playing a tournament on Monday with a guy from my club, but it was a big invitational here in Toronto and big private course and a lot of good players, and we happened to be paired together. And I had a pretty good round. I had a pretty decent result, but somewhere in the round, I smother hooked a tee shot, and he was in the cart with me. I just pull hooked. It's my miss. And as we're going to my ball, which is now on another fairway, he said, he's a really nice guy. And he says to me, I don't know if this is the right time to ask you. I go ahead, ask me anything. He goes, because he played some golf with me at my club. He goes, I've never seen you,
Like, what
I've
happened
never
there?
seen you hit that shot. I said, yeah, well, I got news for you, Tommy. I have. There was trouble on the right side. I set it up to get a bit of a cut and double cross it. He said, you would never hit that shot on the range. Why does it show up now? And I think that's a good question for both of you. Why does that show up under pressure?
Yeah, I think, if you're crazy enough to play in stroke play tournament, whether those are one day qualifiers or whatever format they are, like that is the true test of where your golf game is at. There's no X's on the scorecard. No one's coming to save you if you make a 10. You're not going to be given those 4-footers. There's nowhere to run and there's nowhere
Foreshadowing,
to
by the way,
hide.
foreshadowing for post
Yeah.
John. Foreshadowing. No one's going to save you if you make a 10. Foreshadowing. Continue.
Yeah. So it's not for everyone, but I think if you're competitive, obviously, like, and you get fairly good at this game, you're going to wonder, well, what if I, moved beyond my normal course and my normal friends and put my game up against the best players in my area and see what happens? And I've been doing that for 10 years. I've had some wonderful moments, and I've had some moments that really make me want to like never do it again.
That's
And
right.
it's been really hard at times. And you have to have the right perspective of, first of all, I do this for fun. Technically, golf is my livelihood, but I'm not doing it to become. I'm never going to be a professional golfer. I do the tournament stuff for fun and to learn and test my game. I've met a lot of great friends. I've played on a lot of great courses. But yeah, I think it reveals the truth about, if you want to find out where your game is deficient, like truly, go play a stroke play event. Like you will find out very quickly what's the most uncomfortable part. And the better players use that feedback instead of beating the crap out of themselves. They use that feedback to adjust and work on it for the next time. For me, I couldn't putt on fast greens in the beginning. My driver was wild. And I had to work on those things really hard to be able to shoot the scores that I was accustomed to at my home course under pressure. And that took a long time to get comfortable. And there are times where I feel very uncomfortable, and that's normal
Mhm.
too.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim.
Yeah, I was thinking that's the reason why tournament golf is such a great test, as you talked about, John, is that it's a test of your ability to manage yourself and observe yourself, and particularly how you relate to your own self-image and identity.
Oh,
Because
identity
if
is
you
the worst part. That's the slipperiest of slopes.
exactly, if you live and die by your golf score, you will die many agonizing deaths.
Yes, yeah.
But the thing that you learn though in tournaments, it very quickly is, I put it down to NOC. No one cares.
Mm.
You could shoot 92, and yeah, it's on the internet. Your buds can see it. It's embarrassing. Yeah. But you go into the clubhouse, you have a beer, you talk about this crazy thing that happened to you on 15. He goes, "Oh, wait, I'll tell you about 7."
Yeah, everyone's got their story, right?
No one cares. It's about just
Yeah,
having
yeah.
fun, being together, and that is the one that I use this phrase in different environments, but it's like, "Oh, I'm really fucked up, and so is everyone else."
Yeah, and that honestly, that mindset reverberates up to like the highest levels of golf. So I'm fortunate to work with one of your Canada's favorite sons, Mackenzie
We're going to
Hughes.
get to that. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
but
know.
like
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah.
like that's a very powerful sentiment for him about, not his identity being wrapped up in golf because it's what he does for a living and worrying about what other people think of him and his score being posted for the world. And the bottom line is that for me, for him, yeah, you guys, someone looks at the score, they see it and they're like, they just go on with the rest of their day and whatever crap
Yeah.
is floating around in their
Well,
brain.
Roger Maltby said this, and I've quoted it many times in the last 10 years that, if you want to be a professional golfer, and I substitute, if you want to be a tournament golfer or you want to put yourself out there, you have to be comfortable with a certain amount of humiliation because there is.
Yeah.
It
Yes,
is. Like
absolutely.
we wrap you up here in a couple minutes, I'm going to tell a story of a qualifier I was in last week. Where it was 6 degrees. Sorry, I don't know what that is Fahrenheit. 20 degrees. It's raining. I had 5 layers on and rain pants, and I made a 10, and that score is there.
Yeah,
It was, by the
happens.
way, it was a great 10, and I'll tell the story when you're done. How did you? I'm serious. And it's like the old joke says, how'd you make 10? Sank a
Yeah.
15 footer. 15 footer.
Yeah.
I grinded the shit out of that 10. I knew I was punting for 10. And I thought, well, 10's better than 11. How did you end up going from practical golf, which I'm sorry, the Sweet Spot, Four Foundations book? How did Mackenzie Hughes tell that story? He was just a fan of yours on X. What was the?
Yeah, so after posting, it's kind of sad how many tweets I've had over the years, but after posting all my thoughts on golf on there for years, certain pro golfers started to follow me, I would notice. And he saw one of my threads on the mental game and he retweeted and he was like, great thoughts here. I'm like, oh, that's nice. Mackenzie Hughes, I watch him on TV. That's cool. And I thought nothing of it. And then a few months later, he messaged me just saying like, hey, I really like your content. It puts me in a better place when I read it. I don't know if you work directly with golfers, but would you want to talk to me? And I was like, well, I'd never coached anyone directly in my life. So, we spoke on the phone the next morning for a few hours and really hit it off. And the bottom line is that because he had read so much of my thoughts on golf, he has very similar thoughts. And we see the game very in the same way. And, this was almost 2 years ago at this point and was kind of an experiment. We're like, let's just see how this goes. And, it's been he's just as great as a golfer, he's just a really wonderful guy, which I think a lot of your listeners probably know already. And it's just been a great thing and really an outlet for him to deal with the pressures of playing professionally, and just speaking about his rounds rationally afterwards and letting the steam off and seeing what we can do to adjust for the next time. It's nothing like magical or complicated. It's just, us having an honest dialogue about his golf game.
Has that led to any other engagements by other pros?
No, to be honest, I don't really coach a lot directly. I've worked with some like better junior players over the last couple of years, but yeah, it's really I do spend a lot of time with him on the phone, which is great. So yeah, it's most of my direct coaching is focused on him.
Yeah. John, I want to ask before we let you go, we were talking about identity there for a moment.
Mm.
So I coach a lot of players directly. And I have a one player in particular who plays D1 level. That person's entire life is about golf. And
Yeah,
I'm trying to talk to that person about, I judge you need to have some other things in your life that you care about, that
yeah.
you can get passionate about. You can let go of golf. How important do you think that is for whether it be a PGA Tour player, a D1 player, or just a golf nerd who plays at his or her club to have something else in their life beyond career, family that they can delve into and escape from golf?
Yeah, if if you love this game and get addicted to it, like most of us, in a way it does become our identity, and that could be a great thing. It's good for social connections and feeling purpose. Like I think if I didn't have golf in my life, so many great things have happened to me because of golf. But at the same time, I have gone overboard, and I have felt at times when I don't play well, it speaks to me as a person in a negative way, and that's not a great thing to deal with. So. I mean, to be honest, I actually think it's Scotty Scheffler's like ace up his sleeve, and he didn't plan it this way, but him and Ted Scott's relationship and their faith. I got to be honest, I'm not a religious person, but I sometimes look at him and I'm like, that is, he always says like my identity is secured no matter what happens on the golf course, and I
Yep,
actually think
absolutely.
that's one of his main advantages, is his faith because he knows that whatever happens out there is not make or break for who he is as a person. And a lot of people who play professionally and elsewhere struggle with that. So it's this big game of disassociating yourself from results. And yeah, there's multiple ways to do that. I'm still working on it myself because I do this, for a living, and everything about me is golf. People who meet me like, oh, you do that golf thing. It's like everything about my identity is golf. And sometimes I go overboard with it too. So yeah,
Well,
that you need
and
to take a
also,
step back.
and and I run into this a little bit. I mean, my identity is definitely golf, along with some other stuff that I'm known for. But in the golf world, I've got this podcast, and I'm sure Tim runs into this all the time, where I will be at an event and someone will just kind of whisper, "Hey, GSL, what's up?" And I'm like, "Oh, right, you listen to the podcast." So I have this, like I'm immersed in this. I geek out about golf all the time. It is what I do and think a lot. And so I have to be cautious because I could just get carried away with all the minutia of it and then feel some pressure. Like, I'm at tournaments all the time, and I'll be in a group where at the end of the round, someone will say, like they listen to the show, and I think, well, I've got to not. I don't feel pressure to model behavior, but I struggle with all of that as well. Even though I've worked on it for a long time, I've gotten better. I'm better in tournaments than I've ever been. But there is some of that external pressure, like I still will. Here's the thing: I haven't thrown a club in a long time. That's not saying I haven't wanted to.
Well, I find that's why it's nice to connect with other golfers. So like I have
Yes.
a group of friends who play tournaments, we play tournaments together, and we kind of talk about all this stuff honestly because it means a lot to us.
Yeah.
And we're all competing against each other and we're kind of rooting for each other at the same time, but we also don't want to, again, go overboard with it. And yeah, the last couple of years, I think it's been harder for me to be honest, for multiple reasons, and I've kind of had to like take a step back and ask like, why am I doing this? And I've told myself if I don't find enjoyment in it, I will
Yeah.
stop. I'm not there yet, and I don't think I ever will be. But yeah, there's moments where you're like, why am I doing this to myself? Why don't I just go play a regular round with friends and have fun,
I
torture
have I
myself
have
in a
this,
tournament?
honestly, John. I have the same thoughts. Here's when I have those thoughts. When I have a bad tournament, think,
Yeah,
I really
yeah,
need this.
yeah. And then you
And you
play
say,
great, and you're like, I'm
and you play
back.
great. Like, yeah, you have a great. A couple weeks ago, I shot even par. I thought, is it too late to sign up for the senior tour?
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly. Then
then,
you're like
and then a
looking at the
couple weeks
calendar, be
later,
like, I could fit five more
I
in.
shot 90 for the first time in 10 years, and I thought, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. This isn't that much fun.
It's a again, all I can tell you is if the best in the world struggle with this also, you can
Yes.
go across the entire PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, and looking tapping to Nick Dunlap or these golfers that go back and forth, and like it's a much extreme version of it, but they haven't figured it out either. And I hope people can find solace, not that I want to like take pleasure in someone's suffering, but just understanding that like at some point you'll feel great and at some point you'll feel like crap, and then you're trying to exist somewhere in between.
Well, Tim's heard me say this now 1,000 times that every golf course should have a sign in the first tee that says past performance is no guarantee of future results.
Great
That's
investment
right.
advice too.
Exactly. Any final thoughts, Coach Tim, before we let John go and we moan about our own golf games for a few minutes?
No, it's just been really great to get to know you, man. And congrats on your success with your book. And it's really been fun chatting with you. Let's to be continued, shall we say?
It's
Yeah,
been
and,
too
and
long, Sherman. I've been sending you DMs for years now.
yeah, I'm glad we got to do it. And I always thank you guys for doing what you do. I think the golf world is better the more of these like honest dialogues we have, and golfers can listen to this and hopefully, on the way to the course, and they're like, man, maybe I won't call myself a piece of shit today at the end of the round.
That's right.
And that I think,
There's other people that call themselves pieces of shit as well.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing this as well, because you can never get too much um feedback like this. I think
Yeah,
it's
for
just
sure.
it's
The,
helpful to me.
The
So
book is called The Four Foundations and is a bestseller available wherever books are sold. People buy books. Anyway, and The Sweet Spot. Give our best to your co-host, and hopefully you'll, now that we've figured out a way to book you once, you'll come back again sometime.
I would be happy to. Thanks, guys.
All right, my friend. There he is,
Cheers.
Jon Sherman. Look at that. Jon Sherman, big-time golf broadcaster. Yeah, man. Thanks, Jon. Take care.
All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah.
Okay, the truth is, I made it 10. I made it 10
You
on
got to
the
get right
last
to
hole.
we get to the therapeutic part of the podcast.
Yeah, like, again, 6 degrees, shitty, rainy, the kind of day, because you're a dog owner, the kind of day where you look at your dog and go, I don't think we're going outside today, pal. But put a stick in
right.
my hand, I'll walk around for 5 hours. You know, like, seriously, if it was just, should I take Stan out or not? I'd be like, nah, it's not that kind of day, Stan. We're going to play inside today. So that's the scene setter. I will also tell you, it was a qualifier, and I've been doing these a long time. There was, I think, 30-ish guys or maybe 35 guys at our site for only 4
What course? What course was it?
It's a place called Otter Creek in Otterville, Ontario.
Oh, yes. I've heard lovely things about it.
Ah, it's lovely. It's, you know, it'd be fun. You know, if it was just you, me, John, and somebody, Kent, we would go out there and have a lovely time and everything would be lovely. But, you know, it's a qualifier and, you know, you're trying to qualify. And the thing is, the GAO with the match play, there's only 4 spots because there's so many guys exempt. And I qualified for it last year at this course. It's a difficult, quirky, weird course. Last year in like pretty decent conditions, I qualified on the number, and the number was 79. Then I got retroed out. Then I got back in. That's the story. But this year was just shite. There was only 2 guys that broke 80. 2 guys broke 80. Qualifying number, because there's only 4 spots, was 81. And Kent and I played together, and I shot 90 and was not the highest guy in my group. That's all I'll say. Let Kent, listen, you call Kent yourself, and he'll tell you. But I, in the round of golf, I made a 10, which was also not the highest score recorded in our round of golf. Again,
Oh, wow.
you call Kent and find out what that number was. But between us kids, it was 12. Anyway, it was the last hole of the round. I knew I wasn't going to qualify, but it's the last hole. I just want to get it in, you know, I want to get into the house and get into some warm clothes. And it's a quirky hole. It's like it's like 220 yards off the tee. Then you dog it with hazards on both sides of the fairway. Then you have to cross one hazard to get to the fairway, and that's a weird par 5. And I was just, you know, and I've got a couple guys I know pretty well. Michael Alderman, who we are friends with.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I played with Mike in a tournament on Monday. He shot 89 that day, by the way.
Ouch.
Yeah. I'm telling you, the scoring average of the 35 geezers that teed it up that day, I guarantee you the scoring average was north of 85. Because there was only a couple guys in the low 80s. The rest, everyone else shot a million. Because it was a shitty, shitty day. And we're old.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Look, we're so old. Just look around. We're old men waddling around in the
Wizened, grizzled.
hands are gnarled. And so I get to the 18th hole, this stupid par 5, and I'm hitting 4 iron off the tee. And Alderman and Bondi, another friend of ours, are watching me tee off. And I hit it, and I pull it, and it goes in the hazard. But everyone that says, oh, I think you crossed it up there. I said, no, I don't think so. And I get another ball. So I'm 3 off the tee now. And they all go, no. And I pull it again on the same line.
Goes in the water?
Oh, yeah. I say, no, I don't think, and now I'm not putting on a show. I don't think it crossed the hazard. I'm going to try again from here. Now I'm 5 off the tee. That goes in the water. That one for sure went in the water.
3?
That's my 3rd ball. Now I try again. Now I'm 7 off the tee. And I finally get that one in play. I hit my 8th shot with a 3-wood over the hazard up near the green. I hit my 9th shot to about 6 feet. No, I'm sorry, 12 feet, not 6 feet. It wasn't 20 feet. It wasn't 6 feet. It was probably 10 or 12 feet. And I sank that one for 10. So I make a birdie on my 4th ball, which I was very proud of. And
Talk
and
about lipstick on a pig.
no, seriously. Like the old joke, how did you make 10? Well, how did you make it 10? I made a nice putt for 10. Or no, the joke is I missed the putt for 9 or whatever. Yeah. No, I didn't have a putt for 9. I only had I one putted for 10 and shot 90. So as I said to you earlier in the show, I'm breaking new barriers. Like prior to this, like when I played at St. Thomas last week or the week before, I shot 85 and I made a 9. And I thought, wow, that's as bad as it's going to be. But as Jon said, when you tee up in a stroke play tournament, there are no doubles, auto, and there's no auto anything. No. You got to keep on going.
That's right. Yeah, and that's why tournament golf. So go ahead.
No, that's it. It was. I owned the score, and Kent and I had a couple laughs on the way home. Went for we had to. We call it like. Having a burger to assuage your, like a sorrow burger. we had
absolve your sins.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think one of the things I think that's so good about tournament golf is that you have to face your fears. It's like you look at your demons, and what you realize, when you shoot a very stupid high number in a tournament, is that you don't die.
Yes.
You're still okay. You get in your car after you're done and you drive home and you wake up the next day and life continues. So it's part of just a kind of a grounding process in terms of just dealing with yourself and going, oh, I love the word you used last week, is that you're not as precious as you used to be.
Exactly.
When you were relating this recent tale of woe following last week's tale of woe, those used to be the ways that GSL, this is pre-GSL, of course, would enter golf hell. But now you don't.
Are you talking about Cardinal Howard Glassman? Yes, Cardinal Glassman had some troubles. Before the white puff of smoke went up and I was elected GSL by myself.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. But yeah, that used to be your, this happened and, oh my God, Tim, oh, I'm dying down here. I'm in the flames.
Oh, yeah, that's a direct quote from me. Help me, Tim, help. No, you're right. And you said it earlier when we're talking to Jon. No one really, no one cares. And I truly believe that. And I was very, very tickled, appreciative, whatever you want to say. Our friend Mike Bondi was on the tee that day watching me hammer 4 irons into the water. But no part of me was doing it petulantly. I was just kind of like, hey, guys, here's the thing. The truth is, if I'd been even, a couple over, 6 over par, I would have gone up after my first shot and played it there because that's kind of where it crossed the hazard. But I was just at that point going, well, this is fun. Let me see if I can get one in play. And so Mike could see that I was of good cheer and having a good time. And, we saw them on the tee a few times, him and Alderman. So later Thursday at dinner time after shooting 90, and Bondi had a good day that day. I think he shot like the number was 81 and he was 82. Like 82 was a good score that day.
Oh gosh, yes. I totally get that.
I said, I look at my phone around dinner time and he said, this is from Bondi. Hey, fucker. He says,
yes,
hey,
he's always got the lovely endearments.
Did I tell you when he met my current girlfriend, what he said to her?
No, I could just guess though.
Let me just pause here. So, he knew I was dating this woman from Mexico for a few months, almost a year.
Oh my gosh.
And then he saw me last year, early in the spring. I went to a birthday party and I brought this woman that I had been dating briefly. It was Korean. So when Mike meets Shona, who is my girlfriend now, he said to her, oh, nice meeting you. Do you speak English? That's what he fucking says. She's like, what?
Bondi is such a beauty. Oh,
do you speak English? He says. There's the last couple of chicks he had. I don't think they spoke English.
Oh, that's funny.
So Bondi sees me make a 10. And he goes, hey, fucker, I've seen it all with you over the last dozen years. You took your rough ride like a champ today, and I really mean that. Congratulations.
Nice. Yeah.
Oh, it's very nice. And I appreciate it.
Isn't Mike's, what do you call it?
Play great or be great to play with, his signature.
There you go. Love that. Yeah.
And it's great advice because if you can't play great, and I take it to heart, man, you better be a great guy to play with. And Kent and I, who both made 10s and 12s in that round of golf, and Kent, again, I shot 90. It wasn't the highest score. We had a great time. I mean, yeah, we were kind of, I wouldn't even say bummed out. We were just sort of bewildered by it, bemused by it. And we had like a sympathy burger, whatever we were calling it. And the next week I played, after that day, that was Thursday, I had 3 tournament rounds in a row, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and never shot higher than 77. Because, you know, I know that I'm a good golfer, and that given, you know, the circumstances, you know, I'll probably play. To your point, I didn't take that as an assault on my identity. It was just one of those things that happened. Yeah, a couple of my friends saw it online and went, "How'd you fucking shoot 90?" I said, "Well,
exactly.
It was a tough day, man." I said, "Look at the other scores, you know."
Yep.
And then I played with Alder. Go ahead.
Yeah, when you make those, you know, the supposed disaster holes, they make for good stories.
Oh yeah.
You can have a lot of fun with it. But I'm going to reflect a conversation I had with one of the gents who went to my Oakdale workshop. And at the workshop, this guy talked about how he just found it unacceptable to shoot high numbers. He was just this very intense man. He's retired. Golf is his thing. And then we connected yesterday on the phone, and it was really interesting that I think he'd already started to make this turn in his game and basically his relationship with the game. But he said that he just didn't care as much. And the way I said, I think what you mean by don't care as much, your golf isn't connected as much to your identity and who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said he had a game, I think the previous day, in which he played pretty well, but he wasn't sure. And then he added it up later, and it was 77. And for him, that's a pretty good score. It's in the lower realm of what he usually scores. And he said that his son phoned him later that day, and he said, "How was your day?" And he said, "Oh, I had a lovely time." And they asked again, "How was your day?" Which basically was code for "What did you shoot?"
Mm-hmm.
It took about 5 or 6 times of the son asking till this gentleman finally said, "Oh, I shot 77." It was all about having a great time. The golf course was amazing shape. I just felt good. I looked around, and he shot 70. He shoots one of his better scores. So that's one of the things, again, around the whole thing of things we've said on this program before.
Yes.
Is the more you hold things in balance and the less you care, and that your identity doesn't hang in balance, you have more fun, and the bonus is you tend to play better. As you've been talking about, you shot, 90, and then you go in these other tournaments, and because golf's just a precarious game. You just never know what's gonna show up. I guess the old box of chocolates analogy.
Well, and getting all of that's true. Love what you said, and just hearkening. I love to hearken when I've done more hearkening as I've
That's
aged.
your new thing to hearkening. Maybe that's your hobby now, is hearkening.
I am a hearkener. I said that this morning on the Humble and Fred show. I said, seriously, maybe I list one of my hobbies as Howard enjoys hearkening. I'd like to hearken back to something you said about, or when we were talking about how Scotty Scheffler made the adjustment, famously now made the adjustment after pull hooking everything on the front 9. He had a talk with Ted Scott. All Ted said, because it was toward the end of that 9, he hit a shot, and he said to Ted, "Man, that felt great. I don't know why it went left." And Ted said very simply, "Well, maybe you want to aim a little further to the right." But in digging deeper, what Scotty Scheffler actually said was, this is why I love this. He said, "I just thought, well, I'm probably not going to pull hook every shot I hit today." And it's simple. It seems cute and everything, but I think a lot of us, myself included, need to remind ourselves while we're playing that as long as we don't give up, because we know that giving up is the end of the day, because that starts feeding into the petulance and the identity and the stories and all those things. So short of giving up, as long as you continue to sort of play golf and soldier on, chances are at some point, as I often say, your handicap will show up. Your skill level, though, given an opportunity, will have a chance to shine. This tournament I played on Monday, I know we're going to wrap up quickly, but I was playing great. Playing with Alderman, Big time invitational. All the big names are there. The biggest guys in the province were there. The only guy that was there that, Dave Bunker, if he'd have been there, then the best player in the country would have been there. But a lot of other good players were there. And I am in full flight. 7 holes in, I'm even par. And the greens are so fast. On the 8th hole, I got into some trouble, but I was got myself out of trouble. It's a tough par 4 at Islington, the 18th hole. And I pitch up to about 5 feet, and I've been sinking everything I've looked at. So I say to myself, okay, don't give the hole away. I hit it a little firm, caught a lot of the hole. Now I have an 8-footer, missed that. Now I have a 1-footer, sank it, and I make a triple. So in the middle of this round, when I am feeling great, I triple the 8th hole I've played all day. And I just thought, as I went to the next hole, I thought, well, if I was 3 over after 8 holes, I'd feel okay.
You'd be okay.
I'd be okay. And then I basically played the rest of the round about 3 overs. So I shot 76.
Nice. Well done. So that's why you're the
78.
GSL now.
But so that's the way I think now versus, as you say before, an identity crisis and thinking that the day's over at that point. Because it's easy to do.
That was a great New York Dolls song, Identity Crisis.
Yeah.
Hey, Johansson, he died about a month ago. There you go.
God damn it. People are dying. Listen, before you die, get a copy of Tim O'Connor's book, Getting Unstuck. And there's a bunch of things you learn in there. There's some nice recipes. And so thanks to Jon Sherman, Tim O'Connor.
That was
O'Connor
fun.
Golf.
That was
Yes. We got to if we got him back more often, then he would be an official friend of the show. O'ConnorGolf.ca, humbleandfredradio.com. And Timberly, have a great day. We'll see you next week.
You too, sir. Cheers.
All right, bye.